On NMH at 1, we highlight the latest news, current affairs and community stories from across Namibia, Africa and the globe.
Now here's what to expect in this lunch hour. Curt von Francois statue removed. City of Windhoek urged to look at serious challenges raised by small businesses. National Farmers Unions host their final constitutional review workshop, and finally African Continental Free Trade Area, a game changer for smaller markets like Namibia.
Stick around for these stories, economic news, sports updates and international headlines coming your way, read to you by Diana Master and Aina Kwayo.
In today's midday news update, Yolanda Nal was at the scene where the Curt von Francois statue was removed earlier today. Job Amapanda, who was at the scene, said the removal of the statue is the removal of a lie. Gordon Joseph also gave his opinion on this historic event. Let's have a look.
For no reason. It's been a back and forth engagement on what should happen. I mean, we had received the petition, but general discourse has always been that we should actually be able to lead a society on the basis of truth. That's the first level of argument. What do we mean by that? We basically means that, and I was giving an analogy, no one debates when we say that this is Hilton Hotel, because the symbolism, the naming, and the common knowledge and common narrative about that is understood. Yeah. So the danger with public spaces is that people take it for granted. They don't even go and verify whether this is Independence Avenue. They simply just see the street name. Yeah. When you have a statue like this that says that he's a founder of Windhoek in 1890, but we do know very well that there's no such things. We know, historically speaking, in 1850, Jonke Afrikaner and his people were already here.
Okay, we are minutes away of the Curt von Francois statue here in the city centre being removed. What's your thought on what is happening today?
You know, it's emotional today because when it comes to the genocide and that period and what von Francois represents, so many people before us have committed towards, you know, correcting the history and telling our stories. People like Ida Hoffman and Ida Jimmy and others, and Chief Irako and others. And so for this statue to come down, it's not, people say things like it's taking away history, it's correcting history. Jonke Afrikaner and his people were Kaikams long before von Francois arrived here and slaughtered our people, long before the apartheid regime put up the statue.
Remember to engage us on social media as we continue to bring you pertinent news and events as they occur. Visual news coming up after this break.
Sport Wrap is a daily show focusing on all sport news and current affairs. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact sportwrap@synergy.com.ma.
Getting into today's visual news, the head of the Namibia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Charity Mwea, has urged the city of Windhoek to look at some serious challenges raised by local smaller businesses that hampers them from exploiting opportunities to access bigger markets. She spoke at the 6th Windhoek Mayoral Business Forum yesterday. Let's have a look.
Dino also can speak to this, transit especially. And even businesses, you need to be very innovative, competitive, all of that. They speak of that, yes, they need to be competitive, but what incentives are we providing for them? Particularly in this constituency that this actually falls under the local authorities. One of the issues we're talking about, yes, the cost of utilities. The cost of utilities for a smaller business, even if you want to push them to go into manufacturing, to compete with the other economies that you are competing with, I think it's something that we really need to seriously look at. One of the issues that has been brought to our attention is like, I think, Your Worship, there is a compound called Leonard Kawala compound. Leonard Kawala compound. Many businesses, smaller businesses, have indicated that yes, before they were given, some spaces there where they could actually operate freely, but now the city has actually given the opportunity to be able to actually purchase land and actually put up structures or businesses there. But the offers are just so expensive for them to actually afford. And the core is that why doesn't the city actually look at probably, and mostly the spaces are also quite small for the small business that want to actually invest and put up structures there to operate from. Maybe this is one issue that we really need to look at. How do we incentivize? Because at the end of the day, when this business put up those structures, they will be your ratepayers for the rest of their lives. So, but how do we actually incentivize that? I want to commend the city that, it opened up to the almost long closed business activities following the pandemic. In the last Mayoral Forum again, we as a chamber shared that we used to have all these Christmas markets around town, and I see that you have resuscitated that. So on the checklist again, we'll give you a round of applause and a tick for actually doing that. I think they deserve a round of applause.
Namibia National Farmers Union acts as a mouthpiece for emerging and communal farmers in Namibia, and over 130 farmers associations and 14 regional farmers unions are affiliated with the federation. The NNFU's final constitutional review workshop and strategic plan took place in Otjiwarongo, where 5 representatives from each of the 13 registered regional farmers unions were present.
Okay, no, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm Amon Muchiwe Kapi. I'm the treasurer of NNFU, currently holding, as an acting president of NNFU. The reason why we are here today is just to craft and try to review our constitution. And that is very, very important for us, just to have a coherent, constitution which will fit all the farmers, making sure that we are moving forward. Although we had a constitution, but the constitution has been here for long. It needs to be, revised and reviewed in order to make sure that we are not having an outdated constitution. And that is what we are doing currently. And the very important thing is just to make sure that most of the regions are represented in the governance positions, and all people are going to view their activities within the regions. And we know that everybody are going to be covered within the agricultural industry. And that is more or less the things why we are here. And we will also just be here. Tomorrow we are also going to start with a strategic plan. And from there we are also also going to have a workshop regarding administration, especially at the regional level. But the constitution will not be finally today. It will be adopted and at the Congress. And that is maybe what we are going to do. This is a very, very important assignment what we are having. The only thing is just what we want to have is the cooperation, working together as a team, and making sure that we are in the same house as agricultural people within Namibian house.
Getting into our next video, Olayinka Bandele, Chief of the Inclusive Industrialization Section at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, said this week the African Continental Free Trade Area is a game changer for smaller markets like Namibia and will allow the country to penetrate regional supply chains. Namibia's huge potential in areas such as tourism, travel, health services, and others should be grabbed. She made these remarks at the launch of Namibia's National Strategy and Implementation Plan for the AfCFTA that takes place this morning in Windhoek. Jemima Bierkes reports.
Should complement current efforts to update the country's trade in goods and services, policies and strategies, thereby advancing a coherent, coordinated and aligned trade policy framework. ECA recognises that the development of national implementation strategies is a critical in creating the soft infrastructure necessary for driving the AFCFTA and for tracking its progress and delivery of benefits to stakeholders across the continent. A staged approach to implementing prioritised actions will put Namibia in the best position to fully achieve its potential for increasing its share of Africa trade and to enhance its competitiveness. You may wish to know that Namibia joins Malawi, Mauritius, Zambia and Zimbabwe as the 5 trailblazing countries in our sub-region that have completed the drafting of national strategies for the AFCFTA. We thus commend you for this giant step as you occupy your seat amongst AFCFTA state parties to the agreement and prepare your stakeholders for the opportunities ahead. The lessons we have learned from the process in Namibia will indeed feed into our ongoing support to the other regional member states as they develop their AFCFTA strategies. Honourable Minister, Executive Director, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we launch this strategy, allow me to focus on 2 key issues which are crucial within the context of the AFCFTA. First, the interconnectedness of industrialisation and trade under the AFCFTA in supporting national and regional development. Second, the recognition of the key role of micro, small and medium-sized enterprises, including women and youth-owned businesses, in anchoring export development and growth in Namibia. Taking both of these critically important issues further, I draw our attention to how sustainable industrialisation and development is itself anchored on the advent of new and innovative technologies which themselves are driving the pattern of specialisation and hence the pattern of global trade.
After the break, we review pertinent stories from the country's daily newspapers. Stay with NMH at 1.
Ohole So Nice is an entertainment show brought to you by the youth for the youth. This is a dating show that allows individuals to participate and be their own true selves. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na.
Thank you for staying with NMH at 1. We now take a look at what the lead stories are in Namibia's daily newspapers. The Namibian Sun highlights Prosecutor General Martha Imala's perspective when she yesterday said it would be premature for activists Dimbulukeni Nauyoma and Michael Amushelelo to celebrate Monday's withdrawal of their court case as the pair may be recharged. The case has to go back to the police to investigate and thereafter it will be resubmitted. But I can tell you that if there is evidence to prosecute someone, we will not hesitate, she told Namibian Sun. The criminal case against Amushelelo, Nauyoma and 6 others was withdrawn this week after prosecutors failed to make a decision within the stipulated time frame. Prosecutors were on final remand from the court after several postponements. In a separate report, Mines Minister Tom Alwendo says officials from his ministry failed to stipulate how much lithium ore Chinese company Xinfeng Investments Namibia could export, and it in the process gave it carte blanche to do what it wished. He made the comments in Parliament this week saying the company has been given a pass to export as much as 135,000 tons of lithium ore from its mining site near Omaruru. Still with the Mines Ministry, the paper reports on its page 3 that the ministry wants to probe all applications for exclusive prospecting licenses submitted between September 2021 and September 2022, a move seen as a precursor to regulatory changes being considered to overhaul the public resource allocation regime. This came to light yesterday when the ministry issued a tender for potential consultants to help streamline the allocation of EPLs by designing policies that will ensure their swift allocation.
Now, in our next story, the Republican reports that the Namibia Airports Company plays host to the first of its kind International Aviation Forum, which started yesterday at the Safari Hotel and continues today. The forum is intended to revitalize the local aviation industry, most recently rocked by the COVID-19 pandemic. NAC CEO Basi Uirab encouraged participants to work together and showing off the international attendance for the benefit of the Minister of Works and Transport, John Mutora, who officially opened the event. Meanwhile, ex-employees of the national carrier Air Namibia were outside both gates to the Safari Hotel silently protesting with placards. The Air Namibia employees lost their jobs when the airline was liquidated last year, but have still not received their full severance payment. Now, still with Republican, the parents of two teenage sisters and their 12-year-old brother are both dead, and the matter with the supervision undertaken briefly in court yesterday before the case was withdrawn. The minor children lost their mother in 2014, and in 2021 their father also died. The children have been in their stepmother's custody ever since.
Moving over to the Algemene Zeitung front page, the NWU Business School of the Northwest University of South Africa offers a highly interesting roundtable discussion. The public is allowed to listen to arguments of a think tank on the topic, unleashing the potential of green hydrogen for shared prosperity. The conclusion: green hydrogen can bring a better future to Namibians if numerous factors are managed properly and to the benefit of the people, of the country and its people. Now, in recent years, the granting of exclusive mining licenses in Namibia have been slow and in some cases has come to a complete standstill. The ministry responsible is now looking for a consultant to optimize the awarding processes, reports the Algemene Zeitung. Stick around after the break. We get into the second half of our newspaper review, starting with the Namibian newspaper.
Take a load off and tune into another episode of Brave Namibia, as we take a look at both ordinary and extraordinary Namibians. Brave Namibia is broadcasted on NTV Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and 1up2.com, as well as broadcasted on the following Facebook platforms on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Republican, Algemene Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and all Namibia Media Holdings pages. For more information, contact the Brave team at brave@synergy.com.na. Brave Namibia, for the ordinary and extraordinary Namibians.
Let's continue with our newspaper review. The Namibian reports that the SWAPO Party Central Committee has nullified or removed some delegates from Oshikoto, Hardap, Karas and Ochondonzupa, who were set to attend the Congress tomorrow. This threw the ruling party's leadership into a last-minute scramble for votes and influence. Party's leaders also nullified Grootfontein's list of delegates and ordered fresh elections before the Congress starts tomorrow. In a separate story, the paper reports that Kangi Cherivanga's world came crashing down when one of her sons allegedly stabbed his older brother to death in the early hours of Sunday in Achstelan. The grieving mother says she cannot comprehend how this happened because her sons were very close and loved each other. Now, according to the paper's page 3, half of Namibia still has no access to electricity, with over 300,000 households, particularly in rural areas, electrified. This was revealed by the executive director in the Mines and Energy Ministry, Simon Neumbo, who said electricity provision remains a challenge as the country's overall electrification rate is estimated to be about 50%.
Now, according to New Era, the COVID-19 outbreak, which claimed the lives of more than 4,080 Namibians, exposed shortcomings in the country's social protection programs. This is according to a report released last week by the Labour Resource and Research Institute, which focuses on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on workers and its effects on trade union benefits and services to the workers. On page 3, the paper reports that employees of Shindev Fishing and Princess Brand are facing a bleak future as 1,300 workers are on the verge of losing their jobs. The two fishing companies process wet-landed horse mackerel. However, they have been grappling to stay afloat due to the low catches and high operational costs currently experienced by the sector.
Now moving on, analysts at Simone Storm have observed a faster growth in the number of registered taxpayers compared to the total number of employed Namibians. According to an Afrobarometer survey conducted in 2021, the national unemployment rate is estimated at 37% with a 3% margin of error. This means unemployment could be as high as 40%. Using this estimate, we interpolate the number and unemployed and employed, as we only have official estimates for those indicators every 2 years from the Namibian Statistics Agency. Using this interpolated data, employed Namibians have increased by 3.4% on an annualized basis between 2010 and 2021, whereas registered taxpayers increased by 4.6% on the annualized basis during the same period.
Now, the board of directors of the African Development Bank Group last week approved an equity investment of $20 million in the Evolution Fund 3. This story leaves the economic news segment when we return.
The My.NA Cars Show provides viewers with the best in-class cars content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest cars-related news, products, and services. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact My.NA at synergy.com.na. My.NA Cars, more than just a ride.
Let's get into our economic news. The board of directors of the African Development Bank Group last week approved an equity investment of $20 million in the Evolution Fund 3, a Pan-African clean and sustainable energy private equity fund that is mobilizing about $400 million into renewable energy and resources efficiency assets across sub-Saharan Africa over a 10-year period. Inspired Evolution Investment Management is a well-established fund manager with over 15 years of experience and a track record of deploying more than $310 million in renewable energy projects in African continent. The fund manager, through its predecessor's fund, has delivered 21 renewable energy projects with a total generation capacity of 2 GW. The Evolution Fund 3 aims to broaden geographic and technological scope to incorporate North Africa as well as several SSA countries and decentralized energy business modules as key climate mitigation and energy transition. The bank's support will contribute to an additional 2,162 megawatts of installed renewable power generation capacity, 1.8 million tons of carbon dioxide emission saving, and green and sustainable growth across Africa by creating 2,480 full-time jobs. Building on the track record of the Evolution Fund, the first and second, which generated about 1,309 jobs, of which 22% were for women.
Getting into our next story, credit rating agency S&P Global has affirmed South Africa's long-term foreign and local currency debt ratings at BB- and BB respectively, with a positive outlook. The ratings agency downgraded South Africa's government bonds deeper into junk territory with a stable outlook in April 2020 on the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, in May this year, S&P revised South Africa's credit rating outlook to positive from stable as favorable terms of trade improved the fiscal trajectory country, though it maintained the sub-investment ratings. On Friday night, S&P said the government's economic and fiscal reforms could improve the country's medium-term growth and debt trajectory. S&P said that higher than expected tax revenue relative to its expectations 6 months ago will help to reduce the fiscal deficit as a proportion of gross domestic product. In his midterm budget statement delivered last month, Finance Minister Irongo said revenue collection had exceeded projections and that the budget deficit would shrink more quickly than before, with debt stabilizing at a lower level. Now let's take a look at the economic indicators. €1 will now cost 17 Namibian dollars after the local currency dropped in value. No changes are observed on the Namibia Stock Exchange. Local index remains unchanged while overall index closed 1.42% higher. Looking at commodities, Brent crude oil prices have dropped by 0.15% while other commodity prices have increased.
South Africa's top court has ordered the release on parole of a Polish immigrant who shot dead a prominent anti-apartheid hero in 1993. This and more stories from the African continent coming up right here on NMH at 1.
Flex is your health and fitness show that focuses on the health of the mind, body and spirit. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na.
Let's get into our African news for this afternoon. South Africa's top court on Monday ordered the release on parole of a Polish immigrant who shot dead Chris Hani, a prominent anti-apartheid hero in 1993, a death that nearly sparked a civil war. Janus Wallace, who's 69, has served nearly 3 decades of life sentence for murder, which took South Africa to the brink of a race war as negotiations to end apartheid entered their final phase. The right-wing gunman killed Hani, a hugely popular leader of the Communist Party and fierce opponent of the apartheid regime, 1 year before South Africa's first multiracial election. Constitutional Court Judge Chief Justice Raymond Zondo ordered Justice Minister Ronald Lamola to place Wallace on parole on such terms and conditions as he may deem appropriate. He said Wallace must be released on parole within 10 calendar days from Monday. Wallace was convicted of a very serious crime, cold-blooded murder, said Zondo, adding his conduct nearly plunged this country into civil unrest. But he was entitled under the law to parole.
Getting into our next story, divers were unable to launch a rescue operation after a passenger plane crashed in Tanzania's Lake Victoria as they lacked oxygen in their cylinders, an official report has found. At least 19 people died after the plane plunged into the lake on the 6th of November. The report from Tanzania's Transport Ministry painted a damning picture of the emergency services' preparedness to deal with the disaster. More lives may have been saved if rescue efforts started sooner, it said. Instead, the police marine unit had only one rescue boat. It arrived at the site of the crash 4 hours later and did not have enough fuel, the report said. The report echoed earlier public criticism of rescue operations but failed to disclose the cause of the crash, saying that an investigation was still underway. However, there was bad weather, including thunderstorms and strong winds, before the privately owned Precision Air Flight crashed into the lake. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan has pledged to strengthen the country's disaster response services after her cabinet discussed the crash last week. The report is the first of 3 investigations that are due to be released over the next year. The government has rewarded fisherman Majailwa Jackson for his rescue efforts. It has declared him a hero. awarded 1 million Tanzanian shillings, which is an equivalent of $430 and offered him a job in the fire and rescue brigade.
After the break, we return with international news. Stay with NMH at 1.
Kletskompas is 'n Afrikaanse kontinuïteitsprogram met Namibiese nuus en onderhoude. As jy jou handelsmerk of veldtog op hierdie platform wil vertoon, kontak klets@synergy.com.na.
Let's get into our international news. This afternoon, several people were killed and injured in a shooting at Walmart in Chesapeake, Virginia on Tuesday night, including a shooter, police said. Just days after gunmen killed at least 5 people and injured 25 at the Colorado LGBTQ nightclub. It was not clear whether the shooter died of self-inflicted injuries, Public Information Officer Leo Kosinski said in a media briefing. The police have so far not provided any details about the shooter, but several media outlets have identified him as a manager at the store. At 10 p.m., police responded to a report of a shooting inside a Walmart. Kosinski said, adding that less than 10 people were dead, but declining to give the exact number. Kosinski also said no shots were fired at the police to his knowledge. Walmart said in a statement early Wednesday that it was shocked at the shooting at the Chesapeake store and that it was working closely with law enforcement. A spokesperson at the Centara Norfolk General Hospital, which has the area's top trauma center, told television station Wavy that 5 patients were being treated there.
Truly saddening. Now, Malaysia's king earlier today called a special meeting of his fellow hereditary sultans to discuss who should be prime minister as an unprecedented post-election crisis entered its 4th day. The king is due to pick a new prime minister after the leading contenders, opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim and former premier Muhyiddin Yassin, failed to secure enough support for a majority following a Saturday election that produced an unprecedented hung parliament. The uncertainty over the election prolongs political instability in the Southeast Asian country, which has had 3 prime ministers in as many years and risks delaying policy decisions needed to foster economic recovery. The Council of Rulers, which groups the heads of all 9 royal houses, will meet on Thursday to discuss the formation of a new government, the palace said in a statement. The purpose of the meeting of the Council of Malay Rulers is for the king to get the thoughts of the Malay rulers so that he can make a decision for the well-being for the country and for the people and the country, the palace said. King Al-Sultan Abdullah Sultan Ahmad Shah is in the spotlight as he considers who will be the next prime minister after both Anwar and Muhyiddin missed his Tuesday afternoon deadline to put together an alliance. Stick around after the break, we get into our local sports news.
Hi Nangula, you look sad.
Hi Peter, I am sad because my parents argued about whether I should spend the weekend at my mom's or dad's place. When I asked them why my views were not considered, they told me it has nothing to do with me as I am too young.
That's a job for your cape of participation. It can fix that.
My cape of what?
Your rights. They're your superpowers. Your cape of participation is your right to participation. It means you have a right to participate in decisions which affect your life. You have a right to an opinion and to tell people your views in a respectful way.
For more information, contact the Children's Advocate Namibia in the Office of the Ombudsman on 061 20 73 111. Send us an SMS on 20401. SMS costs 40 cents. You can also send us a message via our Facebook page. Remember, the services of the Children's Advocate are free of charge.
Let's get into our local sports. A private school Swakopmund will host to a new hockey AstroTurf. The school recently purchased an erf next to the high school in Aldridge Street, which will be home to a 1.5 million AstroTurf. School director Henny B. Diba said that the new turf will be a game changer to the school's hockey team. We are moving to a modern way of playing hockey as played in the world and elsewhere. We have been constantly battling for our own turf, and this will indeed play a role in elevating hockey standards in the coast. The students, parents and teachers took it upon themselves to initiate two major fundraisers to raise the estimated 1.5 million Namibian dollars needed to construct the AstroTurf. Several months were invested into building the project.
Now, the annual Rough and Tough rally came to a heartwarming end at Juanijonte's Oasis last week, when an impressive 650,000 Namibian dollars was donated to the Cancer Association of Namibia. This brings the total amount raised in an aid of cancer patients in the country to more than 2 million Namibian dollars in the 5-year existence of the Rough and Tough rally. As a family, we wanted to do something for Namibians, and by supporting CAN, we know that Namibians across the country can benefit. Our family also has a love for vintage cars, and as we are all involved in mechanics, it made sense for us to host a rally. It is what we know, said Renee Bard, who was in charge of the event's logistics. 57 vintage cars from across the country took part in this year's rally that was hosted for the 5th consecutive year by the Bard family from Walvis Bay through their businesses Bard Group and Juanijonte's Oasis. Stick around after the break, we're getting to international sports news. Let's look at the World Cup scores. Argentina suffered a devastating defeat to Saudi Arabia, losing 1-2 to Saudi Arabia. Denmark and Tunisia scored 0-0, while Mexico and Poland also ended the match with a 0-0 draw. Meanwhile, France trumped over Australia with a 4-1 win. Now let's get into our first international sports news. Lionel Messi's Argentina must put aside injured pride after a shock defeat by Saudi Arabia and summon the fighting spirit of their similarly bruised 1990 predecessors if they want to bring home the World Cup for a third time. Messi's 5th and final attempt to match Diego Maradona's immortality among Argentinians by winning football's greatest prize could not have started worse, with Tuesday's 2-1 defeat to the Saudis, one of the tournament's biggest upsets.
In our next story, Rio Ferdinand said the departure of his former teammate Cristiano Ronaldo from Manchester United could have been handled better by both club and player, but that the decision was best for both parties. The Portugal international was on shaky ground at the club due to an explosive interview with Talk TV this month, in which he said he did not respect manager Erik ten Hag. United said last Friday that they had initiated appropriate steps in response to the interview.
After the break, we get into the highlights from today's broadcast.
The Regional Review brings you news, views, and interviews from NMH correspondents from across the country. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact regional@synergy.com.na.
You're watching NMH at 1, and if you're just joining us, let's take a look at the highlights from today's broadcast. South Africa's top court on Monday ordered the release on parole of a Polish immigrant who shot dead Chris Hani, a prominent anti-apartheid hero in 1993, a death that nearly sparked a civil war. Several people were killed and injured in a shooting at a Walmart in Chesapeake, Virginia on Tuesday night, including the shooter, police said, just days after a gunman killed at least 5 people and injured 25 at a Colorado LGBTQ nightclub. In sport, private school Swakopmund will be the host to a new hockey AstroTurf. The school recently purchased an earth next to the high school in Aldridge Street, which will be home to a $1.5 million Namibian AstroTurf.
Those have been your highlights. Remember to tune in every weekday at 1 p.m. to spend your lunch hour with NMH at 1, catching up on the latest news in Namibia, Africa and the world, ranging from current affairs, economic news, sports and international headlines. That is all from all of us here in studio, but don't go anywhere because Irongo Talk is up next.
Hallo kykers en welkom by nog 'n episode van julle gunsteling en hoogs betroubare aanlyn nuusbron Irongo Talk. Dankie vir julle almal wat gereeld by ons inskakel. Ons bring vir julle nuus, die weer en vertel ook vir julle waar die vis heel mondelik gaan byt hier vanaf ons ateljee by Platsameer. In vandag se onderhoud segment vertel die hoofuitvoerende beampte van Namport Andre Kanime vir ons meer oor die finansiële stand van sake by die Namibiese hawe owerheid. Soos gebruiklik is ons kalenderdag eerst op die lys en vandag vier ons Espresso dag. Geniet die video insetsel saam met ons. In vandag se nuus, 'n splinternuwe 4x4 ambulans sal 'n groot verskil maak om lewens in die Irongo streek te red. Die Namibian Marshal Rangers, 'n nuwe winsgewende noodreaksie eenheid, het 'n Mahindra 4x4 ambulans ontvang wat deur M&Z Motors geskenk is. Toe Shaun, 'n deestigter van NMR, na die kus verhuis, het hy ambulanse saamgebring om 'n noodsituasies te help. Ongelukke in afgeleë gebiede soos Solitaire, in die duine en op die strand, sowel as ambulanse wat in afgeleë gebiede vasgeval het en moes uitgesleep word, het hom genoop om M&Z te nader en hulle het besluit om aan boord te kom deur 'n 4x4 ambulans te verskaf. Dit is die eerste 4x4 ambulans in privaat besit vir die Irongo streek en sal die gemeenskap en die nasie dien. Die ambulans sal by die kus beskikbaar wees, nie net vir die komende feesseisoen nie, maar sal in die Irongo streek gestasioneer word vir toekomstige gebruik. Nodee het gesê daar is ongelukkig nie baie 4x4 ambulanse met 4x4 bakkies wat deur diensverskaffers gebruik word om in te gaan en beseerders uit te gaan haal. Hy sê die feit dat 'n ambulans tot by 'n pasiënt geneem kan word, of dit nou in die duine of op die strand is, sal deurslaggewende tyd bespaar wat in nooddienste bedryf maak minute saak. Die ambulans kan 2 personeellede en 2 pasiënte akkommodeer. Die voertuig en die koste om dit te omskep het ongeveer 700.000 beloop. Dit sal ook toegerus wees met mediese toerusting ter waarde van 500.000 Namibiese dollar. Daar word ook gekyk na items soos EKG-masjiene, ventilators, onttrekkingstoerusting, dragbaars en lugmatrasse wat nie goedkoop is nie. Die toerusting in 'n behoorlik toegeruste ambulans kos ongeveer 1 miljoen Namibiese dollar. In nog nuus. Die bemarkingsdirekteur van Trade Shipping Namibia, Michelle Kirov, is tydens die jaarlikse Namport verbruikersontbyt in Walvis Bay met die industrie-toekenning bekroon. Die toekenning vereer uitstaande individue wat beduidende bydraes tot die bevordering van die maritieme bedryf maak. Die ontvangers word deur rolspelers in die bedryf gekies en verteenwoordig invloedryke individue op die gebied van vervoer en logistiek. Kirov was instrumenteel in die stigting van Trade Ocean Shipping Namibia in 2006 en is daarna in haar huidige pos as bemarkingsdirekteur van die maatskappy aangestel. Sy het haar loopbaan in die skeepsbedryf by Manica Groep Namibia in die vroeë 90er jare tussen 1991 en 1995 begin. Daarna het sy in 1996 tot 1998 na Sekul Soul Shipping in Kaapstad verhuis en toe by Unicorn Lines aangesluit as 'n rekeningbestuurder vir Namibia en toe vir 5 jaar in die padbedryf met Wesbank Vervoer gekom werk. Kirov is in Walvisbaai gebore en geskool. Sy het haar opleiding ondersteun met 'n internasionale ervaring in Londen en Kaapstad. Sy is getroud en het 3 kinders en woon in Walvisbaai. Die top 5 volume gebaseerde kliënte is Walvisbaai Salt Refiners, Puma Energy, Sterro Green Road Maritime Namibia, Walvisbaai Bulk Terminal en Logistics Support Services. Ander top kliënte sluit in XYZ Investments, Siffer Investment en Cross-Border Vehicle Traders. En so kom ons dan aan die einde van vandag se nuus.
Revenue up 20%, expenditure up 10%. And take into consideration, a big chunk of this is the fuel increases. And of course, second in line is also our repair and maintenance expenses because of our aging fleet. And of course, with increased business activity also, they come over time to service you as our clients. As a result of the increase in revenue, which surpasses the increase in costs, we are really humbled to report a 63% increase in operating profit from 123 million in the 7 months period ended 31st of October 2021 to 202 million for the period ended 31st of October 2022. You can now understand when I was talking about operational efficiencies, why we are investing so much in the operational efficiencies, in the cargo handling equipment. It's because we have some room to reinvest. In fact, to put our, what do they say? To put our money where our mouth is. So these profits that we are recording, we are reinvesting them in the business in order to ensure that amplify and increase our efficiency levels. Ladies and gentlemen, valued customers and stakeholders, we are truly, truly humbled by the immense support you continue to extend to us, as is evident in our operational performance, and more so in spite of the current generally depressed macroeconomic environment. So the great performance that we are actually reporting is because of all of us. It is all of you that has brought this business to us, that have collaborated with us in order to ensure that we attract new business, especially to our ports, which is obviously to the benefit of Namibia. Because when we attract more business, all of us benefit in the ordinary main industry. We therefore really extend our deepest appreciation for the valued business, and we commit to continue to strive to give you our best and value for money. It will be remiss if I do not really, once again at this juncture, request that you give yourself a round of applause for all your continued support. Of course, we remain mindful of the gaps in certain areas of our service delivery. Rome was not built in one day. We can only reassure you of our unremitting resolve to continue working towards not only meeting, but exceeding your expectations.
Irongo Talk brings you community news in the Irongo region. Irongo Talk aims to reach coastal residents, keeping them updated on what's happening in their community. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 102.com, and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Irongo, The Republican, Algemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and Namibia Media Holdings. Irongo Talk focuses on community news, weather update, fishing report, helpful tips, as well as sport and entertainment. For news-related or advertising queries, contact Irongo Talk at synergy.com.na. Irongo Talk, our community, your news.
The coast is producing good fish with reports of catches arriving from almost every fishing spot. Vierkant Klip rendered some decent kop. Ethan Hendricks went to the area in search of some fresh kop for dinner. He used pulset as bait and was rewarded with a nice-sized kop. Reports indicate that Canopy also provided some nice-sized fish. As expected, this is usually a very good time to fish the northern shores. The Winston is doing just great, and then from Woeringby right up to Cape Cross. This should last for the better part of the next 3 to 4 months. We will probably see some nice kop being caught at Palkies soon. Just remember that Sandwich Harbour is closed for fishing. Palkies will be open until the 31st of December, and the 3 months period closure will go on until the 1st of April to give the breeding stock a chance to fight against the masses. A positive sign indeed is that more and more anglers are releasing the bigger fish for this reason. The snook are still missing, which is a bit sad to see since a lot of families rely on this season to sustain them through the winter months, with the fishing being slightly less than in summer. The guides are doing great and they still have quite a few tourists around. The tourists usually want to catch sharks.